Tulsi Gabbard may not be a fan of Kamala Harris's methods. Kamala Harris going on the debate stage and essentially putting a knife into Joe Biden on this issue of raising up segregationists as the heights of civility, while simultaneously having a policy that is, for all intents and purposes, the same as Joe Biden's. She may not like her methods, but her methods have borne fruit. Kamala Harris rises in the polls. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. And yes, Tulsi Gabbard may not be a fan of Kamala Harris's methods, but they have borne a certain degree of fruit. Guys, if you enjoy this content, you find yourself coming back here often, please consider supporting this content through PayPal or Patreon. They demonetize this channel. It comes across almost randomly at this point. The video on Iran has its monetization currently. That may change. The video on Sanders, not so much. So bizarre. But thank you guys for joining me. So I want to go into the polling. And this video is going to be relatively fast because it's just polling information. Before we get into the polling, though, I want you to see something. Look at this. Look at this. This is awesome. I love this. Joe Biden's standing dropped 7 points since the debate, while Kamala Harris has taken over Elizabeth Warren's spot at third choice among voters, according to our latest poll. This is Politico. Whose name is missing? Whose name is missing? Let me see. Joe Biden dropped 7 points since the debate, while Kamala Harris has taken over Elizabeth Warren's spot as the third choice among voters, according to our latest poll. They do everything possible in their power to not say somebody's name. The other person, who's second place in that race, won Mr. Bernie Sanders. This is the most recent poll for Politico. Joe Biden, 31%. Sanders, 19%. Kamala Harris has overtaken Elizabeth Warren and has moved into third place. Now, if you remember, at one point in the polling, these two were tied. They were neck and neck. If I'm not mistaken, like 13% each or 11% each, whatever the percentage, but they were neck and neck. It seemed that Kamala Harris has edged herself a percentage point. Now, what that means in real world terms, I don't necessarily know. If it was on election night, it would mean a win. But in this case, there is something to be said about, you can see a movement of position from Kamala Harris over Warren. Biden in this poll has lost ground. Biden is at 31%, Sanders is at 19%. Now, if we go back in time, let's see, if we go back in time, where is it? All right, let's say this is July. If we go back in time to the 30th of June, we can see that Joe Biden was at 34%, Sanders was at 19%, Warren was at 13%, and Kamala Harris was all the way down at 10%. Kamala Harris has made a significant jump, literally overtaking Elizabeth Warren's third place position, which at one point seemed relatively solid. Kamala Harris is moving in this race. I said she was a dark horse candidate, and well, that horse was running. Let's go back a few more weeks. Biden was at 38%, Sanders, again, 19%, Warren, 13%, Buttigieg with Kamala Harris all the way at 6%. I'm showing this because I want to show you the pattern in time and the movement that you're seeing from the standpoint of what it seems to be people's opinion of what they're trying to, I guess, think of the candidates. Now, this could be kind of like the Republican race where you have people rising to the top and then falling, rising to the top and then falling. And we have so much time between now and when they're finally getting into the primaries where people are voting that the polling in this is only representative of the public opinions throughout the context of the debates. Meaning, as the debate rolls on and as you get to know more of these candidates, you get to see more of a crystallization of public sentiment. The crystallization up to this point that we've seen is Sanders, his base hasn't gone anywhere. They're still at the 19%. But Biden is losing ground. I mean, look at this. Biden was at 38% back in on the 23rd. He drops to 34%. And now he's gone down to 31%. As Rachel Maddow said one day, that is not sustainable. That is not sustainable. In 7 days, at this rate, he's going to drop another 3%. The catch is Sanders needs to gain ground. That's what it boils down to. He needs to go beyond that 19%. Now, it could be the polling. When you get to the voting itself, you could see something different. It's unclear. But what we do know is Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden has fallen. They have lost support. Kamala Harris has eaten that support, and she's gained ground, has moved into third place. I don't like Kamala Harris, but give credit where credit is due. She had an objective that she wanted to accomplish in that debate. And whether or not she accomplished that objective in a sense of getting the black vote away and absorbing, like pulling that vote into her own ranks, or whether it was enough to just put a knife in the Joe Biden himself and to give herself public appeal and public attention. Whatever it was a success. Whether it's successful enough to get into office is a secondary question, but in the basic objective of pulling herself into relevance, pulling herself into that third, maybe even second place spot, she has at the very least accomplished pulling herself into third above Elizabeth Warren, or at the very least tied with Elizabeth Warren. Not a fan of Kamala Harris, but Lord knows, executing a strategy on debate night, she did indeed do that. And it has started to bear fruit. The polls in this case are pretty clear. She's moved up. Now, this is kind of sad that, a debate night performance would be the end all be all. And this gets to this thing of, well, do people care about policy at all? At the very least, I have argued that optics matter. Optics matter. It's a political space. It's a debate. People have a certain expectation of contact in this debate as you try to delineate yourself from the other person. In this case, Kamala Harris' delineation from Joe Biden wasn't that far at all when you got into the reality of it, but that was on the second night, or the night after the debate, where people could actually look it up. Most people don't look it up. Most people only read the headlines. So her hitting him on that night is the thing that gets entrenched in their mind, and people start looking up her. The fact that their positions aren't that far apart matters less. Matters less. Shout out to Kamala Harris. Good job. Good job. Thanks all.